Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show. We are ready for a one-of-a-kind game here for the Illini, as Bret Beherns will not be on the sidelines. He tested positive for COVID-19 on Monday night, putting him out of today's game. So he is going to be watching, like most of us, sitting on the couch, watching at home. George McDonald is stepping in to lead the Illini today against number 17 Iowa. We're going to check in with WCIA3's Bret Beherns and Jeremy Werner from the Illini Inquirer. They are live right now outside of Kinnick Stadium. And guys, it feels like we're still in 2020 right now.
No doubt about it, Marlee. It's the reality of playing through a pandemic, Jeremy, is that these things happen. They come up. Bret Beherns fortunately said that he's not doing too bad, just a little bit of mild symptoms. His family is doing well at last check on Thursday, which is the good news, but he is not here, and Illinois is going to have to figure out a way to play a game without its first-year head coach, who by all means does a lot on the sidelines for morale, certainly makes the big-time decisions. So how do they go about today without Bret Beherns?
Yeah, well, he is basically setting it up that there's little disruption as possible with this game. George McDonald's been the acting head coach kind of throughout the week, but he's basically going to be the wide receivers coach today. Yeah. And John Marinelli, he told us on Thursday, is going to have the headset, talk to the referees. And John Marinelli, probably most people don't know out there, he's an analyst on this team. So that's a big step up in responsibilities, but it sounds like the coordinators, Bret, are going to take most of those decisions, calling timeouts. Hey, we got to get this guy in. We got to make these decisions, fourth down decisions. So those guys maybe make a few more decisions today, but John Marinelli is going to be the one who's kind of the avatar of Bret Beherns. And John usually is right next to Bret Beherns on the sideline, so he kind of knows what's going on. But Bret's been pulling the strings of this program virtually, but as of a couple minutes ago, he can't have contact. So I can't imagine what that's going to be like. And Bret, it's going to have an impact. It's just how big of an impact. Can the rest of his staff, can the players, a senior-led team, can they overcome not having the leader of their team on the sideline today?
For John Marinelli, it's pretty cool. He's a high school coach and a successful one at that. Comes to Illinois as an analyst, just trying to get his feet in the D1 door, so to speak. I think putting myself in his shoes today, what a big moment. You've got Bret Beherns' headset on, and you're out there talking to the referees. Only Bret Beherns is supposed to talk to the referees during the games. So I don't know if a lot of people understand that or know that like it's not like all of those coaches are out there talking to the referees. That's just Bret Beherns during the game. Now you put John in that. The one thing I'd love to see that we're not going to today, Jeremy, is Bret Beherns live tweeting the game. Wouldn't that be fun?
I said, hey, he's going to be on Zoom at some point on the broadcast today, because it's like, what else is he going to do?
Right.
I can't imagine. He said he's got like 5 TVs set up. He's got a backup to the backup for his TV in case it goes out. But he is going to be like the rest of most Illini fans today, watching this. And for a guy who has made the decisions, is always kind of the guy who it's the final say, to be powerless and the actual moment has to be hard. Now, he's been a part of the game plan. Obviously, they've gone over all this stuff. But as a game happens, he's making the big decisions. That's got to be brutal for him.
Yeah, and I just think and Bret Beherns is, and it's not a bad thing, he's much like a lot of coaches. He is type A to the type A. Everything goes through Bret Beherns, and it's a little bit different than Lovie Smith, I get, in a sense, from that personality element. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are wired different than others, but Bret is very much involved in every single decision. I have to imagine that is so difficult for him today, to be sitting at home, like you said, powerless in a sense, not getting the opportunity to put his hands on it.
I do think there's a couple differences. You mentioned the difference with Lovie Smith. The other good difference for Illinois is he's not the coordinator, right? Like, he's got 2 coordinators who call the plays throughout the game. Now, of course, he has an impact on that, and he does throughout this week as well. But Lovie Smith was the defensive coordinator the last couple of years, so he's the one calling the plays as the game's going on. You don't lose that, right? Ryan Walters and Tony Peterson, whether it's for better for Ryan, and obviously Tony struggled a little bit more this year, those guys don't change from those responsibilities. And the other thing I'll say is, he's a very experienced staff, right? Like, this is an experienced staff with a lot of Power 5 experience. Andy Boo's been a coordinator. Kevin Kane has been a coordinator. So you feel like you have a couple future maybe head coaches, and Ryan Walters and Kevin Kane on your staff, that, hey, these guys are going to be ready for this at some point. And the other part is, you have a very senior-led team. I know they haven't had a lot of success, but you do like that you have a bunch of super seniors, a lot of experience on that field, that they shouldn't be rattled today.
And the other thing I think about too, Jeremy, is Ryan Walters isn't a first-time coordinator. Tony Peterson's been around for 20-plus years. You have all of those other guys like Kevin Kane and Andy Boo, like you mentioned. I just feel like it's a lot different than the other staff. Once again, not different or not bad, it's just different. These guys, I think as a coaching staff, are more prepared to handle something like this than in years past.
Yeah, and of course, we don't know if anybody else has been impacted by this. Bret was around the team on Sunday. He's obviously around his staff last week. From what we heard from Illinois so far, it doesn't sound like anything's for sure, like anybody's out or if any other players are out. So that's something we got to find out as the pregame gets along.
Yeah, and as we move along here, we're going to stay up to date on that as much as we can outside here at Kinnick Stadium. Marlee, we got our sunglasses on. It is a beautiful day. If you would have scripted this like middle of November when we looked at the schedule, at least when I did, similar to Minnesota a couple weeks ago, I said, uh-oh, we're going to Minnesota. This is not going to be good. I better be bundled up. I looked at Iowa today and I said, man, this could be bad, and yet here we are. It is a picture-perfect day for football here in Iowa City, Marlee.
Yeah, guys, I think we've been pretty lucky this year with the weather. I think almost the worst game of the year was the first one where it was like 95 degrees, 100 degrees on the turf. I mean, that one was brutal. I was just standing out there for like 10 minutes, but Bret, you were there for the whole game, so a lot of credit to you. I'm sure you could attest that was a pretty bad one. You guys mentioned a little bit about the setup for Bret Bielema and how he's planning to watch the game. I wanted to share this video from his Zoom call a couple days ago on how he plans to watch this game without him being on the sidelines today.
I'll give you a sneak preview, right? So right now, I'm planning on watching it on that TV or that TV, or that TV or that TV or that TV. I don't know which one I'm gonna have the ability to watch it. I said I want where I'm gonna watch it, and I want a backup plan. I want a backup plan to that backup plan. I just want to make sure I'm going to be able to take it all in.
All right, so he is perfectly set up in case one of his TVs loses signal. I don't think he's going to have any problems watching the game from 5 different TVs that he has set up in his isolation area. He said that he's not at home. He's in a separate location. Didn't tell us where he was, but he said he is in the Champaign-Urbana area. And Bret, Jeremy, like you guys mentioned, we're going to stay up to date and see if anybody else is going to be missing from this game. I imagine there might be a few, so I'm going to keep here updated on Twitter, on email, to see if there are any other players or staff members that will be inactive for today's game against Iowa. But guys, in a perfect world, if everybody is healthy today, given maybe there's minimal players that aren't available, or everybody is able to be available in these circumstances, what are the keys for Illinois today, and what do they need to do to be successful against a really good Iowa team?
Well, I think the matchup is pretty favorable, all things considered. When we look at the success Illinois had at Minnesota, obviously Wisconsin was a struggle getting shut out, but defensively only holding them to 24 points. Illinois held Wisconsin to less points than Iowa did. I think it's okay for where we're at, and for as far as that has come, Jeremy, from the Virginia game earlier on this season, I think that shows a lot of credit. I'm not saying that Illinois is going to come out here and win the game. I think there's some optimism that is possible, but I think overall, as long as the guys are in there, this is pretty okay for them.
Especially with the game you're coming off of.
Right.
Iowa and Minnesota have a lot of similarities. Iowa's a better football team because they're
No
better
doubt.
defensively.
Yeah.
But offensively, Iowa's not. Right? Like Iowa got to number 2 in the country because they force a lot of turnovers and they usually score off those turnovers. They haven't been doing it as much here recently. So I think it's the same game plan you had against Minnesota. It's establish the run. It's make some key throws on third downs or down the field like they had in recent weeks with Brandon Peters. And it's control the clock, control the tempo of this game. Make it a grinded out, ugly game, and then defensively stop the run because Iowa doesn't run the ball that well. Tyler Goodson is a really good running back, and Tyler Linderbaum is the best center in the country, but their offensive line is not the typical Iowa offensive line, and Illinois is holding a lot of teams under 100 yards rushing who haven't done it before. So if they force the Iowa's quarterbacks to beat you, and we expect it to be Alex Padilla today, their backup, with Spencer Petras hurt, Like if he plays today, Illinois force him into 3rd and long situations, and that's a bad recipe for Iowa. And then you just got to force those stops. And if you win the turnover battle, which is always key, Iowa does force a lot of turnovers, but Brandon Peters takes care of the ball. So it's kind of the same thing we say over and over about this team, but keep the points low, control the clock, run the football, you'll have a chance to win in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those games that's going to come down to a turnover late or going to come down to somebody making a big play in the second half. And like I said, I think that speaks a lot of credit to where this team has come and how far they've got to this point to be able to be competitive in the 4th quarter. And they've shown us that. And while we had questions about that earlier on in the season, I think you should believe in this team a little bit. I think they've given you reason to believe, and picking up back-to-back road wins over top 25 teams. And it's not outlandish for me, Jeremy, to say I think they have a chance to win this game.
No, because their defense is going to give them a chance, right? Like it's at the point now. It's been so long since Marlee and I were at Virginia watching that debacle. Ryan Walters has made such key personnel and schematic changes, and this group outside of the Wisconsin game has kept them in games. Now, the Rutgers game, there were some issues defensively, and Alex Padilla can get out and run a little bit, unlike Spencer Petras, which gives you a little bit of concern because that really hurt you against Rutgers. But you can stop the run with your front, who has played extremely well, and Sidney Brown and Kirby Joseph back in the secondary have been really sound. So if they tackle well, force a few key 3rd downs, I think Illinois has a chance, because that's been the recipe, and they've done it time after time. That it's almost time like, hey, you got to trust that the defense is going to give you a chance. Can you score enough points? That's always the key. 14 ended up being enough against Minnesota. It was not enough against Rutgers, right? So, like, that's what we don't need to know is, can the defense hold Iowa under 20? You should have a chance. Can your offense score enough? That's a
and 20's been that magic number to be competitive in games for the Illini. Obviously 24-0 against Wisconsin, but you know that 20 number seemed to be pretty successful, and at least a sticking point. We're like, okay, well, if we can keep a team under 20, we know we're going to at least most likely have a chance. We mentioned the defense, Jeremy, and you got to give guys credit like Kirby Joseph, who we weren't talking about at the beginning of the season. If you would have told me Kirby Joseph was going to be leading this team in interceptions and like there, right at the top of that defensive depth chart, I would have told you were crazy. And I think that goes to show a long way of how much this team has improved and how much this defense has improved. Ryan Walters gets rewarded with that, with a contract extension, adds another year on, gets a nice bump in pay, a couple $100,000 more, no big deal, right? Whatever.
But 7-figure coordinator.
Hey, great. But that goes to show a lot of credit to Josh Whitman in my eyes too, that he was willing to invest in his guys. And I know he's shown that in the past, but when you start to stack it up and you go, hey, Josh Whitman's not messing around here. And in my eyes, Ryan, even if you're going to say only 10 games, look, the dude's deserved it to get to this point of what he's done.
I think it tells you a lot about what Josh Whitman feels about this program, and that they could be great, but you can't have that kind of turnover, right? I think basketball, we saw the turnover, and Brad Underwood able to, rebound pretty well from losing a couple guys, but they want to be proactive and make sure that another school didn't have a chance to come and steal him away. It says a lot about what Bielema thinks of Ryan Walters and how important he is here. It says a lot about what Ryan Walters thinks he can do here, because this is a big move for him to stay here, where Illinois has not been successful. Maybe he could have gotten interest elsewhere at a better program, and he decides, no, I think I can help my career most this way. But he deserves it, as you said, like putting players in positions to succeed. They're running a 3-3-5 defense now, where Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph, Rod Perry are playing great. Isaiah Gain, Owen Carney playing their best ball. And I think Sidney Brown and Kirby Joseph at safety are put in the right roles, where Kirby don't have to worry about coming up in the box and making many tackles, but just be back there, be a rangy safety, kind of cover up everything. And then Sidney Brown, you're moving around everywhere. And I think it's just really confused defenses, and that's what a coach is supposed to do, is put the guys in the best positions to succeed, develop them, and all of a sudden you start to have success.
All right, I think the defense is going to give this team a chance to win today and an opportunity down the stretch. We'll see, because I'm not that impressed with the Iowa offense. I don't sit here and go, hey, that Iowa offense is going to score 24 points on the Illini by any means. We'll see how it plays out, Marlee. But the big question for me is the offense, Marlee. What do you make of this Brandon Peters-led offense and what they can do, and maybe hang a couple touchdowns?
Yeah, Brett, I'm with you. I think all year the defense has really given the offense the chance, and there's been so many games where they've been in it, but the offense hasn't been able to execute. Take Purdue, Maryland, for example, where the defense was putting the offense in a position to win, and it comes down to the final 2 minutes, and Illinois is unable to put together a scoring drive. I think they've kind of had these ups and downs of the season, but as we've seen, the run game has been so successful this year. Maybe that changes a little bit without Bret Beherns being on the field. I don't know. We'll see what kind of play calling Tony Peterson is going to put into the offense today, and what George McDonald is kind of going to lead this team to do. But guys, the biggest thing that I'm noticing here in this one is that Iowa is a very, very good takeaway team. They lead the country in interceptions. I think if Illinois is going to pass the ball, that might be a little bit dangerous considering, some of the inconsistencies that we've seen. I think Brandon Peters had a great time out last game against Minnesota, but Jeremy, I want to ask you, how much of a threat does the Iowa defense pose on Illinois' offense today?
Yeah, Marlee, that's a big concern, is how much can you throw the ball against an Iowa back seven that's probably the best in the Big Ten, or among the best in the Big Ten. And what they do is they kind of sit in this Lovie Smith zone, right? Phil Parker's kind of run this cover two a lot, and that just allows them to have the eyes on the quarterback. So Brandon Peters has to be really disciplined. But I'm also interested to see if Tony Peterson runs some quick hits, because you usually got to sit in a soft zone. You got to sit back a little bit, like 10 yards back, and you might be able to have some quick hits where you get 5-6 yards per pop instead of going deep a lot, right? So I think that's where they can find a little success. And for Illinois, if you want to chew a lot of clock, I think you're going to have some success doing that. It's just on Brandon Peters to be accurate and make good decisions. But Brett, he's done that the last couple of weeks. He hasn't had a lot of opportunities to throw it. I think maybe he should have the last couple of weeks, had a couple more opportunities, but he's been really efficient the last couple of weeks, even if he's not asked to do a lot.
I was really impressed at Minnesota with what he was able to do in his command. And for me, Jeremy, it was all about getting that early lead to set the tone. We've talked ad nauseum about this team not being a club that's capable of making a big comeback in a sense. If they can hang a couple of points or get to halftime and be tied, I feel like that is going to go a long way, especially without Bret Beherns here, and get that feeling of like, hey, we can do this. We're capable of this. And I know this team believes, and we've been talking here for 15 minutes. We haven't even brought up a bowl game yet, but that's what's on the table here. That's a possibility, and the players certainly know that. I'm not saying that they need that to believe they can win. I feel like they're walking in here today thinking that they are going to win this game. But like, just to have that reality check, if it's 7-7.5, I think Illinois feels great about that.
Well, and you're right about scoring. Like, look how much that changed the game, scoring first and getting up 14-0. I mean, Illinois might have been too conservative down the stretch, but they found a way to win that game. You're right. This isn't a team that can throw it 30 times and expect to win, especially against this Iowa defense. So I think you're right. I think if you can score early, even if Iowa scores first, but you tie them and make sure it's a game early in the game, you gain some confidence on the road. They know they can do this. They've done it before. I think that's really important, to get some early confidence and not get down 2 possessions, because if they get down 2 possessions, that's playing right now what Iowa wants to do.
Yeah, and it's senior day here. Iowa's going to have all the emotions, all the feels. They want to go out the right way. And they're still playing for a lot here. Now, they're going to need some help to try and get to the West after losing to Wisconsin, but it's still not out of the question. So they have a path there and a route as long as they get some help. The other thing for me is just being able to come out here, like you said, with the lead, and then have that belief that, hey, we're still playing for a bowl game. I know the players are thinking about that. Bielema tried to put that down this week a little bit, but it's still mathematically possible for them to even get to 5. Look, I don't trust the Northwestern game next week. We've watched too many games against Northwestern in 2019, I think, first and foremost, where Illinois was the far better team and yet still got stomped in that last game. I just, if you can somehow get a win today, I think you're going bowling with 5. Have you spent time crunching the numbers?
Yeah. You still got to do all that.
You're on the deep interwebs there at 5.
The Big Ten probably won't fill all its obligations, so there's a decent chance. Like I was told, that's a good conversation after this week. We'll know a lot more. But you got to get to 5 wins to even have that as a possibility, right? So if you want to make a bowl game, win the next 2 games, right? That's the most important thing. If you win the next 2 games, you'll probably be in Detroit, the Quick Lane Bowl, and no program will be happier to be in Detroit the day after Christmas than Illinois would be. But that'd be a huge step for the program. But let's just talk about beating Iowa. I mean, they haven't beat Iowa since 2008. They haven't played them very much since 2008. And Iowa's won 7 straight in this series. They haven't won here in this millennium. So I think that's really important. Like, if you want to take a step forward as a program, Like, if you're sitting here, Brad, at the end of the day, and in this season you have wins at Penn State, at Minnesota, and at Iowa, that's a successful season.
Oh, no
like
doubt.
I know, like, you might not get to a bowl game, or you might not get to 6-6 if you lose to Northwestern, but that's a huge step forward where you can sell that Bret Beherns already improved the program, and then say, hey, look where we can go once I get my guys in.
Yeah, and they're doing things that haven't been done in a long time, and that's certainly notable. And I think that, like you said, would really help momentum, regardless of if they make a bowl game. Obviously, they'd like to. The extra practices, I think about some guys and getting that extra experience. And more than anything, it doesn't get talked about a ton, but in my eyes, those extra December practices where they get like 11 or 10 or whatever they are, those go a long way. And for evaluating that talent for next year, I think that could be huge for this coaching staff to get another look at some of these guys, say, hey, is this who we really want moving forward as they try and build this roster?
Yeah, it's a huge point. Like, it's not about like, hey, Brandon Peters or Doug Kramer get more practices.
No,
it's about,
they don't need it.
It's about like Josh Krutz and Zach Marlew, like some of these freshmen you want to develop and have to play big roles next year. Those guys can get that extra experience. So it would be invaluable in every way if they can find a way to a bowl game. You talk about recruiting. You can start selling that, even if it's not the bowl game Iowa will be going to, or Ohio State going to a college football playoff most likely. But for Illinois, that'd be a huge step forward.
Right, and to keep it in perspective, right? Like, let's keep things in perspective here, where Illinois football is, where it's been, and then obviously as we talk about where it's going, Marlee. I don't know if I can say this enough, Marlee. It is a beautiful day here in Iowa City. I mean, I can't ask for any better weather than this. A little bit windy, feels like it's coming out of the north. Maybe a wind play a little bit of factor today, but 1 o'clock kickoff, strange kickoff time. We got basketball on FS1 before, right? Whatever, it's beautiful. That's all I care about. We should have a great game today.
Awesome, yeah. Wish I was out there in the beautiful weather, but I'm heading to a couple high school football games today, so it should be a pretty good day all around. I'll take it over snow or rain or whatever else that we usually have this time of year. So glad we kind of lucked out there. Guys, we got a couple minutes here left on the Your Illini Nation pregame show. You guys have talked about it. I mean, Illinois is close to being eligible for a bowl game. I think that when the odds are stacked against them, like at Penn State, at Minnesota, they've shown that they can overcome some of this adversity, and I think it's fair to say that Illinois could be in this game, and what an incredible story that would be just for college football. I mean, this team coming back from what was a rough start to the season, winning 2 straight wins over ranked opponents, and then if they can get the win today, doing it without their head coach, I think that would really say a lot about this program. Guys, what are some of your final predictions, score predictions, as we head into this 1 o'clock kickoff against Illinois and Iowa?
Well, I'm going to go with this. I haven't seen anything on Twitter here yet. Any guys out? We'll see as we get here closer. What are we about? A little more than an hour before kickoff here. Let's see. The game. I can't actually see the game clock there where we're at. A little more than an hour. We'll call it that. Look, I think Illinois is going to be competitive. They've given me a reason to believe, Jeremy, and I think that in itself goes a long way and should be. Give credit to this team for what it is. When a lot of fans were already moving on to basketball season, that Penn State week, end of October, when we had that first exhibition game for basketball, give this team a lot of credit for being where they're at. I'm
thinking about it.
Yeah,
I'll give mine
tough.
first.
All right, you go. Right. What'd you put on the side?
My head is
Don't
saying.
think with your head. Costanza, right?
Right. Well, here, my head is saying 17-13 Iowa. Right. Expect Illinois to be competitive.
Yep.
I think Iowa's a little bit better of a football team. But not so fast, my friend, because I've been so awful at score predictions this year. I'm 4-6. I can't figure this team out. When I think they're going to win, they lose to Rutgers. When I think they're going to lose, they play great against Minnesota and Penn State. So I'm going full George Costanza, doing the opposite of what I think is going to actually happen, and my gut feel. I'm going to go opposite my gut. I'm going to go Illinois 17, Iowa 14.
Okay.
I have no faith in that pick, but it's time to go Costanza.
I don't know if I have faith that Illinois is going to put up 17 points. That's where I'm really, really struggling with this offensive, mindset here and where Illinois is going to find those points. Can the defense get them a touchdown? Illinois has been competitive here. I think back to 2015, Geronimo Allison game where they had a good chance to win this game with Bill Cubitt as interim coach.
Vaughn's late fumble.
And that was tough here against them. Obviously, everyone wants to think about 2018 and that 63-0 debacle back in Champaign. Remember, they were up last year in Champaign against his Iowa team. Was it 14-0
Brandon
early
Peters
on?
looked great, and then he looked awful.
And then it went downhill pretty south. I don't think I can pick Illinois, Jeremy. I'm going to go against you there.
It's probably the smart pick.
I'm going to say Iowa 14, Illinois 9. That's where I'm
It's a
landing.
very Illinois-Iowa score.
I know. It's brutal. Maybe not the most enticing game to watch for fans, but hey, it is what it is.
But I think it says something, Brett, when you and I expect Illinois to compete.
Right.
Right? Like, if that's the minimum expectation, like, at least the bar has been raised where we expect Illinois to compete
100%.
in these games. I think that's really important.
Okay. Marlee, I know you love your predictions as well. Who are you going with?
No, I don't really love my predictions. I just throw random numbers out there based on vibes alone and absolutely no logic to it. But I think I'm going to pick Illinois today. Let's say, all right, what am I feeling here? The number 21 is
like a
is
9
popping
to 7.
in my head.
Oh,
It's going to be 21-20 Illinois. That is my prediction based on the vibes. Guys, any final thoughts here before we
If there's
wrap
41
up on the
points
Illini
scored-
Nation pregame show?
Yeah, Marlee, if there's 41 points scored here today, I'd be shocked.
Marlee
The
taking
vibes-
both
the
Illinois
vibes
outright
said-
and the over.
I'm gonna trust your vibes. If you're on that, Mar, then I'll ride with you on that. I love the optimism from Jeremy too here, just going full Costanza. It's great. My brain tells me that's not the case. But hey, I'm also not going to be surprised if Illinois wins the game. And like you said, I think that shows a lot about where this program's at and how far they've come. And like you said, Marlee, if they can win a game without their head coach, credit to them. You know, they deserve to go bowling today. If they win 5, I think they're going to feel pretty good about that. And look, you never know against Northwestern. I mean, I know they're not good this year, but that game is just never good.
Can I mention this too? They went out. It's the first winning record in the Big Ten play since 2007. So like they have that in front of them too. Like that would be one heck of a feather in Bret Beherns' cap.
No doubt about it. All right, Mar, we're going to head inside here. We'll have plenty more coverage coming up after the game. Real quick, what do you got on the site coming into this game, the next hour to read it?
Got live updates right now. Joey Wagner and I had our overs and unders. We were awful last week in Minnesota. We're going to be great with our picks today. And, of course, all the post-game coverage at IlliniInquirer.com.
All right, check that out. We'll have our post-game press conference feed right here on these same digital channels, Marlee, as we'll hear from George McDonald after the game. And Illini hoping it's going to be a happy locker room and bus ride home, I should say. They usually fly over here. They took a bus, so they got, if they can get a win, 4 hours to celebrate on the bus ride home. For Jeremy, I'm Brett. Marlee, we'll send it back to you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. And for the record, I'm not thinking with my brain. I don't think anyone's brain was going to say that Illinois was going to win in 9 overtime periods against Penn State. So we're throwing brain out the window. We're going completely on all else and just a feeling. But that's going to do it for us here on the Your Illini Nation pregame show. A 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox Sports 1. We'll also have much more coming tonight at 6 and 10 on WCIA. And be sure to tune back into our digital channels after the game as we'll be streaming not Bret Bielema's post-game press conference, but George McDonald after the game. That'll do it for us here today, guys. Enjoy the game.
Good stuff. Thanks, man.
Good hit. Good hit. Good. Love your work on the line there.